In the 1990s, black horror films represented black culture and told stories of vengeance against their oppression. These films showed the urban environment and the dangers it created for the community. But it also showed the human side of it, and showed that the streets may be dangerous, but the people there deserve to be heard. In comparison to the 80s, black horror films feature black people in the spotlight and not as the side character to be used or killed. Many 80s horror films didn't even have black characters as their setting took to the white suburban streets. The 90s black horror films didn't have much funding, but with the home video boom, tons were being made. These films had black vengeance and had messages of black empowerment. These movies often addressed the increase in drug and gang violence in the inner city. Black in horror films were also popular in the 90s. These films used blackness as a device, rather than representing black anxieties like in black horror films. Although these films may be problematic, their success is still important in understanding the rise of black horror films today. Movies like Candyman, Spawn, and Blade were extremely popular black in horror films in the 90s. In this video, I will be looking at the films Death by Temptation, Candyman, Tales from the Hood, and Vampire in Brooklyn. The decade starts off with the film Death by Temptation in 1990. A young man, Joel, is said to be a preacher, but wants to explore life before settling down. From his home in the South, he calls a friend living in New York who invites him to stay. This friend, Kay, has recently met a woman at a bar whom he flirts with. Unknown to him, this woman, called Temptation, is actually a demon feeding off sinful men. Once Joel comes to New York, he learns about the city from Kay.
New York is wild.
What you saw today, young brother, were victims of economics, environment, and Reaganomics.
However, Joel falls into Temptation's trap as she needs a sinless victim to achieve victory. Kay and a supernatural detective from the bar attempt to put an end to Temptation, but fall prey to demonic entities. Once Temptation finally tries to kill Joel, his grandmother arrives in the city. Her and Joel use the power of religion to take down Temptation. In black 90s horror, we see religion and mothers as a positive fight against the evil quite often. In 1992, the black in horror film Candyman was released. This film was centered around a white woman, Helen, as she researches the Candyman myth. Helen and her research partner go into the inner city to investigate crimes that have been associated with the Candyman. Helen is attacked by a man who claims to be the Candyman, and she gets him in prison. After this, the real Candyman appears to Helen, claiming he must be feared.
Be my victim. I am the writing on the wall, the whisper in the classroom. Without these things, I am nothing. So now I must shed innocent blood.
The Candyman places Helen into situations in which she seems to be the perpetrator of crimes. These involve the kidnapping of a baby and killing of her research assistant. Helen must join the Candyman in order to free the baby. When Helen gives in, the Candyman crosses her, and Helen is forced to save the child and sacrifice her own life. Candyman showed the black community through the lens of the upper white class. The Candyman himself was a victim of white fear, as he was the son of a freed slave killed for a love affair with a rich white woman. In the film, Helen realizes the struggles of the black community as she discovers that her apartment was a former housing block that was gentrified. She also expresses her unhappiness with the fact that the police only did something in the black community once a white woman was attacked. The horror anthology film Tales from the Hood was released in 1995. This movie tells the story of 3 young gangsters going to a funeral home to purchase some drugs.
Ah, the shit.
While attempting to get the drugs, the funeral home keeper tells the boys of 4 different tales of death, each telling a tale of black vengeance. The first story is about a black police officer fresh on the job. One day, he witnesses his racist colleagues murder a local black political activist. This event makes him quit the force, and 1 year later, the dead activist calls on him to help take retribution. The next story is about a young boy at a new school. His teacher notices the boy has signs of abuse, and when asking the boy about it, the boy says that there is a monster at home, and draws it. One night, the teacher visits the home of the boy and learns that the monster is really his stepfather. The boy uses the picture he drew of the monster to help defeat his stepfather. The third tale is one about a racist southern politician. This man is running for governor and purchases a former plantation despite the black community's concern. This man hears about voodoo magic in the house, specifically about a voodoo woman that put the souls of former slaves into dolls. One night, these dolls attack. The last story is about a gangster that after being caught murdering someone, is taken to a rehabilitation center. This place equates him to the KKK, saying that he has taken just as many black lives as them. He has shown all the people that he has killed and questioned what in his childhood made him like this. After this, he awakes, revealing that it was all in his head as he falls victim to some other gangsters. The boys in the funeral home are aggravated by this, revealing that they are the ones that killed the man in the last story. The funeral home director reveals that they are all dead, and this is hell.
Welcome to hell!
This film's stories about the black community struggle are still ever present today. Released the same year as Tales from the Hood, Vampire in Brooklyn took a more comedic route to the storytelling of a vampire.
Interesting.
A vampire named Max comes to America in search of the last of his people. This last of his kind is a female police officer named Rita that is half human, half vampire, and this is unknown to her. When Max arrives to New York, he makes one man his servant and travels around Brooklyn in search of Rita. Max embodies several people along the way, tricking his way into the life of Rita.
Well, the bottom line, brothers and sisters, what I'm trying to tell you tonight is that evil is necessary. Evil is necessary, thereby, if it's necessary, evil must be good. Evil is good.
And eventually turns her into a vampire. However, Rita stands up to Max, and with the power of religion and her human friends, kills Max. Again, we see the influence of women and religion in these films. The rest of the decade would see many more black horror films, many with strong female leads, like in Eve's Bayou, Spirit Lost, and Beloved. Overall, the 90s showed blacks everywhere in horror, taking these stories to the inner city. All this led to black horror in the 2000s, in which black hip-hop horror took the center stage. Thank you for watching my video on black horror in the 90s. Please let me know what you think in the comments.